Welcome back, Streamer Nation. I'm your host, Michael Simeone, and you are listening to the SP Streamer Podcast, which is part of the Fantrax and FantraxHQ.com family. Lauren, I could see you crying from here based on the Freddie Freeman news. How are you feeling?
Right. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. As an Atlanta fan, I had been talking about it over the offseason. I'm like, what is wrong? Why haven't they, re-signed him? But I will say I am upset about that. But, in terms of, who they brought on with Matt Olson, this is the replacement that you would want to have. I think it's a good move for the organization. So I'm okay with that. I'm still waiting. Are the Dodgers going to sign Freeman? I don't know exactly where he's going, or Boston. I don't know. But it was sad that I get the organization move.
Yeah, I mean, the move for Olsen was great. I think I saw somewhere that like a bunch of MLB execs think that he may have like overvalued himself almost. So now like the market is dwindling for him, and now he's just going to end up kind of screwing himself because he's not going to make as much money. But I mean, you got Olsen. Sure, he's not Freddie Freeman. He did just have a really good year, so you got to hope that's is sustainable, which it seems to be. And you locked him up for several years. One of my friends is a Braves fan too, and I was texting him, and he was so happy when they extended him because they're like, if we just did this for 2 years, like forget it. But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like with Olsen, we saw his kind of breakout year last year, but I think the move from, the Coliseum over to Truist Park, I think he'll put up very similar numbers to Freeman, minus maybe the batting average stuff. But I think this was, I would have been disappointed if it was like, oh, you get like Rizzo for a couple years, or to a lesser extent Schwarber. It's just like, I think this is a really good move for the organization, and I hope that fans see that.
I'd rather have Schwarber than Rizzo.
Yeah.
All right, and that is our guest for today. He is a writer, analyst for NBC Sports Edge. Can't say it. He's the host of the Turn 2 podcast. He is recently an FSWA award nominee, a Tout Wars champ, and that is Matt Williams. What's going on, Matt?
Say more nice things. Good to be here. Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman.
I mean, we'll get to all these. Now the craziness of Bryant going to Colorado, which we'll get to probably. I hope Freeman signs with the Rays. I've just given up.
That'd be so weird.
It would.
I mean, they made the trade for Cruz last year, which was weird, and then they dished out a lot of money to Franco, which is a little weirder. So I guess this is the next progression. Maybe they need to do this to get to a new stadium, but like, yeah, I've written off it being impossible. I've seen the impossible happen several times over this offseason. So yeah, let's get Freddie Freeman to the Rays. That would be tremendous.
That'd
be
wild.
So baffling. Yeah, I mean, I feel like now it's just like a coin flip. Like, who the heck knows? I'm sure he still wants to go to the Dodgers, but who knows how much they're willing to give him. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. But yeah, so on this episode today, we're just going to talk about all the free agent sightings / trades, everything that's going on, because a lot has happened since we last came on, and it's continuing to happen. In fact, we just got news, and I guess we'll just talk about it first. So Kris Bryant just signed with the Colorado Rockies for 7 years. What are our thoughts? So what are our thoughts in real life baseball for him with this move? I guess for the Rockies moving forward. And then what are our fantasy baseball thoughts on this? We'll start with you, Matt.
All right. I mean, I said this in the pre-show. Let's talk real baseball first. I called my dad immediately as soon as I heard this. Dad, guess who signed the Rockies to guess who signed Kris Bryant to a 7-year deal? And he's like, the Giants. I'm like, no, more ridiculous. He's like, the Marlins. No, more ridiculous. The Pirates, not that ridiculous. And then we finally get to the Rockies, and we're just laughing. And then we find out he has a no trade clause too. And the fact that Arenado was owed like $20 million more, like for 5 years, and now they have Bryant for 7, and they're still paying Arenado. In real baseball, this is embarrassing. What are they doing? What are you doing? I mean, in fantasy, this is terrific. Colorado. I mean, he's going to bat at the top of a lineup in Colorado, and yeah, there probably wasn't a better landing spot for him. He obviously is not going for the win, as far as that wasn't a very important thing for him. But hey, good for him. I mean, go get your money. If someone's giving it to you, you take it. don't look at the gift horse in the mouth. Yeah, good for him. I have a couple of shares when he is dropped because he's by and large a boring player that a lot of especially analysts like to discount. A lot of really smart people like to compare him. Well, you can get this production later, but him being third base and outfield, and it gives you a little bit of speed. I always kind of liked him at a certain point. So I do have a few shares, not as many I think as Michael has, but for fantasy, this is one of those things. Yeah, for real baseball, huge embarrassment. For fantasy baseball, fantastic. Maybe Dick Manfort plays fantasy baseball. He's been loading up on shares.
That would be interesting.
Galaxy brain.
Actually, I think I saw him at the Main Event live event in New York City last year, but I could be wrong. No. Lauren, obviously, I mean, I'm sure you agree. Great for Kris Bryant in terms of fantasy value.
Of course, you can't get any better. You know, it was like, who was going to go to the Rockies? It's Kris Bryant. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think he can push, 30 home runs then now being in Colorado, or what do you think the big jump is for him?
Well, I think it typically makes a big jump for average, right? As well. So, I mean, he's hit 30 before. I don't see why I can't hit 30 again.
I mean, he had
and then maybe that.
Yeah, he had 25 home runs, 32 doubles. I'd say.
Right.
I mean, he could get to 30. I mean, I'd say 40 doubles is more likely to happen than 30.
And like his average, maybe it goes closer to like 280.
Yeah. I could say that.
I'd say so.
So, question for you, Matt: who does this affect in a negative way? So, obviously, he's coming into the team right now. Roster Resource has him playing left field, which means they're benching Connor Joe, which is very, very sad if that is true. Do you think that's what's going to happen? Or, I mean, who they have playing? I guess McMahon plays third. I don't know.
It depends.
Why
right now,
they
have
pick Iglesias out of there.
I mean, right now the roster resource has Sam Hilliard in center. They showed how much they don't necessarily care for him entirely, so we don't know what they plan on. Because right now they have Tapia, Hilliard in the lineup, platooning with Daza, Joe, and maybe Garrett Hampson. I don't necessarily think it shakes out that way. They probably could be making another trade just to bring in something else. They obviously need starting pitching more than anything, but they're just ignoring that. But I'm sorry, Chad Kuhl's in town. You're saying?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Chad Kuhl. I mean, they could put Rogers at short, right? Then
I mean,
McMahon at second, and then Bryant at third too.
What do you mean? They brought in Jose Iglesias. He's one of their prize. Actually, Iglesias, don't sleep on him in fantasy too much because I think what he did with the Angels wasn't necessarily that big of a fluke. He for what he is, he did improve. So in Colorado, he actually could be he actually is useful. But yeah, who knows? Whatever you decide to do, you watching right now, we're going to screw you. Whatever decision you make, opposite's happening. So that's
100%.
Really yeah. Ryan McMahon is probably going to end up losing at bats here somehow, and everyone who invested there is going to be very, very upset. It's basically the only person playing every day is going to be Kris Bryant and Charlie Blackmon.
Yeah, probably. CJ Cron. Well, no, they actually kind of benched him too at times. By the way, I forgot. I should have said this in the beginning. We finally have Matt on here, and Matt is the reason that I just brought on Lauren, basically. Matt posted something. Lauren was on a podcast, and he introduced me to her. And then I was trying to reach out to Lauren to get to talk to her, and she was private, and then Matt had to message her and tell her to go unprivate so I could actually DM her. So we do have Matt to thank for this lovely podcast that
we do.
Oh yeah, Lauren's awesome. I remember when I read they sent me some of their stuff and I invited him onto my podcast. We had to wait because she was like, big time. You were like having a vacation in the Hamptons or something.
It's like the only time we had left, and it was COVID and we were gone for a week. I actually came back a day early from that to go on your show. So
wow.
But yeah, it was the first time we had been away. And yes, but you were the impetus there. So yes, this is it. These are my M's here, Matt and Michael. So
that means that's just means
you couldn't have ended up in a better spot.
No, I
That
love
means we have
learning.
to bring Matt on more just because. All right, let's move on to a recent signing. Is it recent? Kind of, maybe. Carlos Rodon signed with the Giants. So I think it's pretty interesting. The new narrative that's kind of come around is basically, are the Giants so good with pitchers where they can keep Rodon healthy? If that makes sense. They're a smart organization. Why would they take him on if they thought that they couldn't? So obviously it's a good landing spot. We all know, good pitchers ballpark, good team. What are your thoughts on that, Matt? Do you think that maybe they can keep Rodon healthy and now he's kind of worth drafting at this point?
A 3-prong answer. First prong.
Okay.
I was on team qualifying offer in terms of avoiding Rodon. If the team that drafted you brought you along, it saw you pitch your ace best, didn't even want to give you a 1-year qualifying offer, that is a huge red flag to me. That being said, the Giants are a better run organization than at least proven as far as with pitching. So if any team was going to sign Rodon, where I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I trust them, it's the Giants. So that's number 2. Yes, I trust that they can do as much as with Rodon as possible. But the third prong is that everyone thinks that, and his ADP is going to skyrocket to a point where I'm no longer interested again. So it's like, news giveth, news taketh away. So yeah, I would be more interested than I was. Maybe this is something in an auction league where you have the ability to do something out of order. But again, I would think that a couple people are going to be in there with you. So yeah, good news in real baseball for as far as maybe. I mean, the Giants' rotations held together by duct tape. They really overperformed last year, and this isn't a knock on them. They did all the right things. They platooned like the Rays, even over the Rays, and I don't see them getting that lucky this year with keeping it all together. And they've added even more guys like Carlos Martinez to the mix. But hey, you only need a few of them to hit. I don't see it working out for them, but I'm not, I'd love Rodon to go out there and do it for a full season. He's awesome.
Yeah, Lauren, are you gonna touch him or are you still staying?
No, I'm still out. I mean, I will say I was like a little eyebrow like raising because I do I respect the San Francisco Giants and their pitching organization. They obviously have shown they know what to do. But at the end of the day, my issue with Rodon is never like, where was he going to land? It was, his injury history with his shoulder. And that doesn't necessarily change. And it doesn't really change, where he's going. So it doesn't really move the needle for me. I am, like a little bit like, oh, okay, we'll see how this goes. But I'm still not drafting him.
Yeah. And Matt brings up a good point. I mean, they bring on C-Mart. They sign Jacob Junis. Maybe they just tell him, throw your breaking ball all the time. And then Beatty too. I mean, Beatty gets kicked from the rotation now, clearly. Yeah, I mean, Alex Wood struggles to stay healthy, but I feel like they did a good job with him last year. Cobb has always kind of struggled to stay healthy, but, that really good splitter makes him a little more enticing.
Logan Webb struggles to stay healthy. Antonio Descalfani struggles to stay healthy.
Yeah, I think I'm a little more confident in Webb at this point. I mean, maybe he's just back on like the roids or whatever, but yeah, I mean, DeSclafani, yeah, he has struggled too. I think they kept him relatively healthy. Yeah, he pitched 170 innings last year. It's pretty good.
I mean, do you think it's just like a matter of maintaining everyone's innings and just keeping all of these guys who have, a history with injuries and staying, on the mound, just keeping them? I know that doesn't he have does he have to pitch like 110 innings in order to opt out next season? Or there's something along those lines in his contract? But do you think it's just, an issue of innings management, like load management for all of these pitchers?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot. I mean, they're going to like a 6-man rotation. They can certainly try that. I mean, they have, if they're confident in their recipe to fix people, it could just be a next man up situation. So yeah, and it's a short-term deal for Rodon. They gave him a lot of money, but for what they try to do, if it blows up on their face, it's not like a game-changing thing like Chris Bryant for 7 years. I like what they're doing. They did well with it last year. You don't have to look very far to see that this plan works. And I mean, Carlos Rodon was better than Kevin Gausman. He didn't stay healthy enough, but when he was healthy,
Right.
he was better. So they theoretically replaced their ace with someone who was actually superior inning by inning. So yeah, I mean, this could work out.
And Jock Peterson just signed with the Giants.
They have a lot.
Another platoon.
Oh.
Yeah, they'll be able to platoon every position but catcher.
It's crazy. Basically.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
All right, let's talk some Mets here. Chris Bassett went to the Mets in a trade. Matt, I mean, I think you tweeted about it. You said that we did give a decent haul, but you did still approve of what they were doing here. I have long been saying this offseason that I love Bassett, so I love this signing. What do you think about it, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic. I think Bassett was the best of the group that the A's were actually sending, and I like Manaea and I like Montas as well. But he's improved over time, even though he's like a late bloomer. He's not a guy that gets you to swing and miss. Swing a 25.5. League average is somewhere around like 30. So it's nothing that he's not going to be necessarily blowing your doors off. But he's impossible to kind of like time up. He had I think the second lowest WOBA on fastball last year. First was Jacob deGrom. And he was phenomenal at home, which smart people like Jason Collette, they're trying to throw out something where, be wary. He did really well in that cavernous ballpark. Citi Field is pretty neutral. It's not like one way or the other anymore.
Right.
But overall, over the last like 3 to 4 seasons, I think over the last 3 seasons I read he was in the top 10 in ERA in all of baseball. He's just such an underrated pitcher.
Yeah. Like, I love Chris Bassett, and I have just, especially this season, been, and even like last season, going out, and I always reach for him. I don't care. I love having him as my 3rd or 4th pitcher. I know exactly what I'm getting. And with the ERA, he hasn't had an ERA above 3.20. I guess once he has in the past 4 seasons. Yeah. So it's just, like you said, Matt, I mean, he's not going to blow the doors off, but he's just so consistent. And those are like the types of pitchers that I love to have for my SP3, SP4. And you may see some regression in the ERA, but like, I just think that you'll still get a below 4 ERA from him. And I will take the trade-off because I think that you also are getting a roster and a lineup that has a little bit more bang for its buck than what you had in Oakland, I think. And I think he may get a couple more wins out of Citi Field.
And he's someone, he outperforms his peripherals every year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, just using FIP and ERA. I mean,
but some people have been using that as a negative against Bassett when I brought that up.
But I mean, if you can, I would too.
People have done it forever, for years.
If you can consistently do it, that's part of who you are. Like we said, he doesn't have the input factors that usually would drive something like being able to strike people out. But what he does well, and he does it consistently. And it just doesn't. It's just one of those things where it just doesn't happen to show up on, the ERA indicators. But he does have a track record, and we know how he operates. So yeah, I trust it. The only thing I don't know if the strikeouts are necessarily going to be there as much. He posted 25% last year. That was a little high, but I think that he'll be close enough to that. So I think the regression there may come. Like you said, we may not see 3.15, but I wouldn't expect too bad. I mean, I think he's below a 3.5.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, a 3.23 ERA in his last 400 innings. Yeah. I mean, clearly the guy knows what he's doing. So yeah, I was really happy about this. I mean, the only thing that kind of said in me, which I think he's going to end up seeing innings anyway, just because of how fragile their rotation is as well, is Tyler McGill. Obviously now he's got the boot officially, but I'm sure between Carrasco, DeGrom, Scherzer, Walker, he'll find his way there.
I think I actually straight up replace Walker.
Whether you think so?
I think he may just outperform him.
I don't know, because I kind of like Walker because I really think he just got fatigued last year.
Could be. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it definitely could be.
That's my opinion.
So we'll have to see with him, because if it was just simply that, his slider was working really well down the stretch and he could be great. But it could have. He's one of those people that did really fall apart after June 21st. So it's just one of those things. But he had some kind of odd knee thing. I can't remember what the heck it's called. So he may not be ready to start the season anyway. So maybe McGill can like hop in there and give a good first impression.
I was going to say that maybe he pitches so well where he just stays, but I don't know what they're going to do. It's good to have depth though. As a Met fan, I'll take it, obviously. All right, let's move on to a sign that I saw a lot of people like. I released an article saying I don't like it, and that, as you say, Kikuchi going to Toronto. What are your thoughts on him for fantasy moving forward, Matt?
Yeah, I actually commented on where you posted it, so it's like, well, what I'm going to say isn't a big surprise. It's like his problem. I mean, his changeup and his slider, he gets a lot of swings and misses on it. His whole thing is his velocity, or at least the consistency of it. Rob Silver, I believe, put this out there that when he's throwing 96 or above, he's literally dominant, like ace level dominant. When it's below 95 or below, he is garbage, like unstartable. So those little tiny things make a big difference. Toronto, they've fixed Robbie Ray. Consistent velocity was not his issue. So I don't know why everyone thinks that they can just automatically fix everyone. It's a completely different problem. But I think where he's going in fantasy drafts, I would be interested in taking a shot here or there. Definitely no one I would want to have a ton like over leveraged on, but I'd take a shot there because if they can find something where he can crack that, it'll be good. But I mean, that's an if. It's a terrible division to be a left-handed pitcher in. And real baseball, it seems like they gave him a little too much money, but hey, they're going for it, and they don't care. In Toronto, they just wanted to get the best available guy, and he kind of was. So as far for them, I have no problem with it. But I also anyway, I'm rambling on the in
That's
fan.
Okay.
I see the reason for and against. Therefore, if he falls to a point where it makes sense for my team and I haven't really taken other risks, I'll get a share here or there, or a whatever. All that. But other than that, I'm not.
What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm kind of like as well. I mean, I do think that also, I guess, fantasy implications. I think that if you were kind of taking shots on Nate Pearson, that may not be a good bet because I think that maybe he goes to the bullpen unless something changes.
I think if Pearson is healthy, though, so I mean, this was the point I was going to bring up. I think Kikuchi needs to be in a 6-man rotation. I mean, or they need to figure out how to give him an extra day off because he has said in the past several times, and it happened last year too, like unless he is getting extra rest because he was so used to that in Japan and now he's pushing his velocity, I think that's what's causing his mechanics to change in these starts and that velocity to dip. So I think Pearson will still get innings. I don't know how many, but I wonder what they're going to do because I just feel like they can't start him every 5th day.
Well, that's interesting. And I think, both those pitchers, Kikuchi's got like a 300 ADP. Pearson's going about 50 later. So, I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's interesting if they kind of work more towards like a 6-man rotation, or if they have to kind of, more load management with him, then maybe Pearson would be the beneficiary of that.
Pearson's been throwing gas early too. Like he's been good. One thing I understand with a lot of teams, especially the way baseball has been like trending in recent years with like, the more bullpen, shorter outings. Why isn't there modified 6-man rotations? You don't have to go in order. You don't have to. Like if the Mets wanted to go like save a couple of people that obviously could, Carrasco and Walker, McGill, if you want to load innings, like give your aces or, in this case, give Barrios, give Gausman the ball every 5th day. No matter what, and keep them on a schedule. But if there's some people like, Kikuchi that would benefit otherwise to being off a schedule when it doesn't affect them because the constant routine isn't a thing, go out of order. I don't know why this hasn't been tried. There's so many, must be a reason they're not. The Rays haven't done it. But it just seems like something that would have been tried by now that, you don't have strict 6-man rotation. You can have a pretty strong 4 or 5-man rotation and kind of fill in gaps as you go. I'm just surprised, it hasn't been tried.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, I feel like kind of all these organizations are a lot smarter than us. So they know something we don't there.
If it hasn't been, it's funny. The Rays are sitting there like, you know what?
I think that Matt Williams might be on to something.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to another pitcher who actually was traded, and that is Sonny Gray to the Minnesota Twins. Minnesota has been very confusing. Adding, but then trading away. Not really sure what they're doing here. All right, let's start with this, Matt. Do you have any idea, before we get to Sonny Gray,
Yep.
do you think the Twins are trying to win or not win here?
They can't be. They can't be. Because behind Sonny Gray shouldn't be your ace. And he is like their ace. Dylan Bundy's their number 2. I mean, you can argue they're number 2, but whoever you argue, it's not a number 2. They have a 3 and they have like 4 5s, basically. I mean, it's not good. They're kind of like what the Rockies are doing. No matter how much you want to load up your offense, it's not going to matter. You're going to lose games by a smaller margin, but you're still going to lose them. And I like Gray from a fantasy standpoint, getting out of Cincinnati, going to Minnesota. Sure, that's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And the return they got for Barrios, and then they get Gray back. If Gray's healthy, the total return that they had over that just entire transaction load, that's really great for them. So I like the move individually. I don't understand it if right now they sold Josh Donaldson essentially so they can rumored to get Trevor Story. Don't do that. Go get a pitcher. You don't have to. You don't have to go get someone who's like super expensive. The A's are getting really great returns for their pitchers and for their players. They're doing a good job, even though the A's fans don't want to hear it. But at minimum, I was hoping they'd go after like Zach Greinke, Johnny Cueto, bring back Michael Pineda, like at least bring some of these guys in because what they have right now is just like a oof.
Yeah.
You're not a Randy Dobnak fan?
No, I mean I'm
not. Lauren, what do you think about Sonny Gray?
I think I think Matt covered, kind of all the main points. I think it's a good move for him, to get out of Great American Ballpark. And I like Sonny Gray. I've kind of always liked him since he was in Oakland, and I like the move, but I think that overall, talking about Minnesota, they have made some very head scratching moves. Maybe they think it's like they can get by with this because they're part of the AL Central and it's just really, I don't know. They think it's an easy division and they think they can get by with this. I don't know. I have no idea what other moves are up their sleeves. But it will be interesting to kind of find out.
I wonder if the expanded playoffs had a lot to do with some of these moves too, where these teams maybe just think, all I got to do is squeak in and maybe something can happen. So Josh Donaldson goes to the Yankees. IKF goes to the Yankees too. I was a big Donaldson guy. The problem here is now though that he basically can't DH there. As of right now, with the way that they have their team. So Matt, do you think this kind of hurts Donaldson in terms of, higher potential of him getting hurt? Or do you still kind of like the move for him?
He usually gets hurt like rounding the bases. So I don't necessarily.
I forgot. You have like a vendetta against him, don't you?
Oh, you don't like him?
The bringer of half tightness.
Because Matt had him last year.
Yeah, I love it.
But he was good.
Like I'll bring him back, and then like he'll come back on a Monday when you're setting a lineup. He'll rope a double, then smokes his first at bat, pulls up lame coming into second. Boom, he's out for the rest of the week. Okay. I like it. I thought it was hilarious. They put him on the same team as Garrett Cole. I don't know if they just didn't think that through or anything, but hitting that middle of the lineup could be amazing, especially at third base where there's so many question marks. If you're not getting one of the top like 4, or I guess you can have Bryant in there now. It's a question. So I usually like to go for like Justin Turner type or something, and I do have a couple shares regardless of Donaldson for even though how much he's hurt me in the past. But now absolutely, I'll take a shot. You just have to have a backup plan. Going back real quick to the Twins because I just checked. Graphs, they do the projected standings. All those things they're doing right now, still projected to finish dead last in a very bad 73 wins. So, congratulations on Sonny Gray, everybody.
Not surprising there. Lauren, what do you think about Donaldson?
I like the move. I think that I feel like, you get when people go to the Yankees, they get super excited. And I think this is like one of those, like he can get jacked up about this, Josh Donaldson. And I like it. I do. I think it's interesting, though. I mean, this is a very crowded team right now, and if you look at, roster resource, you have LeMahieu on the bench. And I think that in terms of, Luke Voigt and, what's going to go on with him, I mean, he can't like this move. He didn't like it when they brought, with Rizzo coming on and on the team. And I think he has to get moved. I just think it's really crowded in New York right now. And I think that they have to iron out some moves.
No offense to resource, but DJ LeMahieu is not being benched.
I was going to say,
no, I know.
But that's I think what they're going to do is just really give guys days off and move a ton of people around. Because I mean, you could put Glaber at short and then LeMahieu at second, and IKF could come in whenever he needs to, that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I don't. It's kind of weird what they're doing. I feel like the Yankees have been doing this for years and it's just not working. Like, again, I like Donaldson. I think his underlying metrics are great. He's like top 10 in every metric at the position. But I still like, why get another injury prone player that should be playing DH? Like I don't know what they're doing. I'm assuming there's got to be more moves coming.
They never go through a season where they're all healthy. Yeah, I remember when the 2020 season started and like Stan hit those mammoth home runs in Miami. Like I was like, oh God, everything is looking good. And of course they get injured almost immediately. So yeah. God, looking at this roster, it is stacked. This has like
healthy.
This has like a change of pace or change of scenery Gleyber Torres trade written all over it.
Yeah.
I mean, they should just do that.
It is very injury. And maybe that's like the plan here. It's like instead of say like in San Francisco, we've got like kind of the injury prone pitchers. Now, like in New York, you've got kind of these injury prone hitters, and you'll just cycle through them. It'll be fine.
Isn't it seem like they go through a thing where like there's 4 or 5 of them out at a time?
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah. Do you guys think though, like real quickly, do you think that? IKF, do you think that he would play any would you think he'd play behind the dish at all this season and get some catcher eligibility
back? I was wondering that too, actually.
Because I kind of think he could be a sneaky move. I know that everyone's like, oh, like he just, there's no power there. He gives you the speed, but it comes at a decent batting average. I think that you can get him late, especially in draft and holds and whatnot. He could be sneaky. And I think especially if he catches a couple games, I don't know. I think that could be a nice move.
Definitely possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it would actually be the most optimal lineup. There would be him catching. I don't know how the Yankees pitchers will feel about it. That's a huge thing for them.
That's true.
But, that's true.
We'll see.
Well, Higgy will at least be behind the plate for Cole, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. It's definitely an interesting roster, and I still I'm assuming they're making another move. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Luke Voigt at minimum has to be moved.
He has to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So Nelson Cruz signed with the Washington Nationals. I really like this. I think from a Soto standpoint too, it gives him some protection in that lineup. But he's going to be hitting behind Soto, so likely could get a ton of RBIs there. We all know the power. What are you thinking about this move, Matt?
I hate it for Josh Bell. I don't like him having to hit behind both. He's still fine, and it's always good to have a better lineup overall. And you can always have people in front of you, which is good. But I did like him. I did like him when he was I would love him to be batting. Maybe swap the two. But he is a switch.
I mean, it's possible.
I like the team. Cruz is what he is. He's getting discounted a little too much, like he always is. There's a little more risk now. I think that a lot of his struggles last year were to the batter's eye in Tampa. So I think he's a nice buy in a good, not a good lineup, but a good spot in a lineup. I think this hurts Keibert Ruiz the entire thing, because people were drafting him as that last ditch effort at catcher that you thought could really benefit from getting DH at bats. He is now getting 0, no DH at bats. So I think that does knock his value back significantly, where people had him there there with Stevenson in front of Garver. I mean, I think he definitely moves way behind them now into that group where it's just like, just another catcher possibly. But yeah, this is an interesting spot. I'm just kind of surprised. You go the A's and Reds just breaking things down, rebuilding. These guys are rebuilding. They're signing Nelson Cruz. So I mean, at least it's entertaining for the fans there. And yeah, for fantasy, this is not bad.
Yeah.
Real quick, I don't know if this is a reliable source, but I'm seeing here that the Orioles have made an offer to Carlos Correa.
Oh.
Fine.
Do
I don't know.
you think he'd
But
want to go
anyway,
there? Huh, interesting.
I don't know. I saw it. It is all over Twitter right now.
Correa,
Okay.
go to Miami, Carlos.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I don't even remember who we're talking about
Cruz.
because I got so distracted. Did you get to chime in, Lauren?
No, but I mean, I'll quickly say, I mean, yeah, I do kind of like I really like the move for Cesar Hernandez, who's like someone I've kind of been pumping up a little bit. He's just kind of this, I think, really kind of back end hitter who can be a sneaky, I think, run, producer now. And I think right now, I think he's batting at the top of that lineup. Whether he goes 1 or 2, now he's batting and, in front of, Cruz, Soto, Bell. I really like that. He's a boring accumulator. And I think that this helps him a little bit more. I really don't kind of understand though, why Cruz would want, to go to the Nationals, like in terms of just the quality of the lineup, or if, but I was listening to something and I forget what it was, but Mike Kurland was on there and he was saying that actually his understanding was that Cruz was signing here with the understanding that the Nationals were going to kind of get more players aboard and they were going to wheel and deal a little bit more. So I don't know what that means, but that's something that Kurland brought up.
Never listen to Mike.
I know. Right, I hesitated bringing that up, but I think because otherwise I don't know why. I mean, whatever. I think it's
you're right.
Yeah.
It is interesting move on his part. Like, I mean, unless he just doesn't care about winning, he just wants to go with the money. Very
One
possible.
thing I don't understand is the whole thing where Dave Martinez came out and said that he wanted Cesar Hernandez to bat leadoff, which he hasn't stolen a base essentially since he was in Philadelphia. That could be just a thing isolated to Cleveland. We'll see if that takes off. He's a switch hitter, hit 215 versus lefties. Again, switch hitting's stupid unless you're Chipper Jones or Mickey Mantle. It's usually a bad call. I mean, Lane Thomas, I know that there's a small sample size there. He's definitely a guy who has a better track record of on base percentage. Cesar Hernandez in his last 2 full seasons, like last year he was like 308, and then his last full season in 2019 it was 333. So he seems like a brutal option. It's good for his fantasy value. He's going to get on base in front of some studs, and we know he has some power. He's a great late round guy. So I'm not saying he's not a good player, and this is great if he hits there for fantasy. But as far as real life baseball, I don't know why they would want to put up someone there like that, because it just, I don't know, it seems like Thomas is a better table setter than him, and you want to have someone on base for those guys.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I guess it could go Thomas and then Hernandez though. 1-2. I mean,
it'd be good to see some spring training games to see what these guys are
doing.
We really just gotta wait.
I mean, time for the scrubs. They got to put in the real lineups pretty quick.
Yeah, seriously. All right, so since he made another move trading Jesse Winker and Suarez to Seattle, I think Rob Silver brought up an interesting point on his podcast, Launch Angle, where he said basically Suarez was kind of thrown in because crappy contract, obviously, and he's not so convinced that Seattle really likes Suarez, that essentially they had to take him in order to get Jesse Winker. So he's not fully sold on him being the starter. So why don't we talk about both of them? Winker, Suarez, Matt, fantasy wise, what are you thinking with those two moving to Seattle now?
I don't think they have another choice but to start Suarez. They don't have a superior option on this team. I mean, if he struggles as much as he did at points, I guess, but I think there'll be he was killing the ball the last quarter of the season. I think he'll bounce back to a degree. He's a fine enough third baseman, and the power is still there. So, it's a massive park downgrade. So for someone you're already taking a risk and a flyer on because you're hoping for a bounce back in a great park in fantasy, obviously I don't like this. Hearing stuff like that, you don't want to hear either. I would say I would think that he's going to start every day, but just knowing that is out there is not very comforting.
I feel like they must love Toro though too. Like, I know Kyle Lewis is hurt, but I feel like when he's healthy, what are they going to do?
I mean, Toro. I mean, he can kind of play everywhere.
Mhm.
I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
they have to be another move here. I mean, they have Haniger, they have Winker, they have Kalenic. Julio Rodriguez is alive. Hello, he's going to be
Yeah.
up at some point. They have Kyle Lewis, who he's probably going to be injured forever, but he's still around. At some point, he'll be back. I would think they'd have to make some kind of a move here because they just have too many freaking players, and they have Matt Brash currently in their starting rotation, so maybe they should reallocate some resources.
But I think with like Suarez, though, he's replacing Kyle Seager, and I feel like that profile is very similar.
Yeah, very.
So it's just like, well, like I don't know why they wouldn't roll with him. I mean, they may not love him, but I guess in terms of production, you're gonna get like a very similar line out of Suarez. It's like that power low and low batting average. However they get there, whether Seager had better plate discipline and contact, it at the end of the day, I think their lines could be similar.
It's funny that Suarez doesn't actually like chase too many pitches. He's even though he had this awful couple of seasons here with those the brutal strikeout rates, but in 2019 he was still 28% strikeout, 28.5% strikeout rate, batted .271 and 49 home runs. Obviously that had a lot to do with the baseball that was being used, but 202 and 198, I think he can bounce back enough. Seager, 198 is bad, 202 is bad, but I think that you can his expected batting averages were nothing to write home about, but 213 and 215. I think that, in that ballpark where things can fall in a little more, maybe his power comes back a little, but I think he can come back into like the 240-ish range, which would be fine.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he's as bad as last year. Yeah. All right, moving on. Kyle Schwarber signs with the Phillies, slotting in probably, I guess you would assume, as their DH. Matt, what do you think about him in terms of fantasy?
As a Mets fan, I just hated this so much.
Obviously.
I wanted to root for him so badly because he's so cool. Last year when he screwed up this routine toss to first in the playoffs, he gathered himself rather than losing it. In a big town like Boston, he nails the second one. He runs with his arms up in the air. He tips his hat to the crowd. The dude's cool. But yeah, I would say everyday DH. That defense is not something you want out there, and they're pretty set at first base. But it's an imperfect fit from a real baseball standpoint. I think Baum's not a great third baseman. They probably would have preferred to keep the DH open rather than it being clogged. But this is going to be a good spot for him. There's certain hitters where you just say their power plays everywhere, so the ballpark doesn't matter. But in this particular case, Schwarber will hit plenty of fly balls that will go out in Citizens Bank Park. He's one of those guys like Rhys Hoskins where everyone thinks, oh, he's a 40 home run hitter, and they've never reached that plateau. Schwarber's never hit 40 home runs. His career high was 38 in 2019. Other than that, 30 and 32. He's never gotten there. I think he's a threat to get there this season. So yeah, I like him. I think his ADP is appropriate, and the bump he's going to get is probably appropriate too, because he's going to bring a decent enough batting average. He's not like Joey Gallo. If you like Joey Gallo, you pay the extra bit and get Kyle Schwarber. I personally would wait and get probably Hunter Renfroe, who is a discount version of Kyle Schwarber now. So yeah, it's a great spot. Maybe a little expensive because unless he gets to that 40 home runs, then his skill set is actually available cheaper in most fantasy drafts.
What do you think, Lauren?
I like it for fantasy, and I like it for the Phillies. I think it's a good move, like all around.
Yeah, I mean,
Harper,
again,
going to throw a hissy fit if they didn't sign one of these guys.
Yeah,
probably. I mean, their lineup looks really good. I'm a big fan of Segura. I think he's even undervalued for fantasy right now. And then Schwarber, Harper, Real Muto, Hoskins. If Hoskins, stays healthy, that's a really good first five right there.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Scary, especially for the Mets. Okay.
And the Braves.
Yeah. And we don't like to think about the Braves here.
That's right. I'm double teamed here with the Mets fans.
All right. How about so Matt Chapman got moved to Toronto. Do you think he's going to see a little bit of a rebound, especially with batting average here, Matt?
I do. His hard contact metrics were pretty much still there, which was, that's his calling card, his power. The main thing is he was just turning in this just albatross batting average. And there's some people that disagree on this, what I'm about to say, but I think a lot of it had to do with a hip problem. When some people said that he came back from the hip and he was fine, I think it was something where he dealt with it. There was a setback. He came back, he dealt with it, and then it lingered. Because everything from a power perspective is there. It just looks like there's just things off in contact. So I think that that's just something he had to deal with.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think that he'll, definitely benefit, changing Parks from going, the least hitter friendly, to Toronto.
More hitter friendly.
Yeah. And so I think that'll help him. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I know, we talk about skills and stuff, but something like this, also going to a really stacked lineup and you've got the, ballpark, in your favor. I think that, and if you've kind of worked yourself through, like hip injury or whatever, this just may be something that like Matt Chapman needs. And I could totally buy into him kind of, having a much better season this year than what we've seen and getting back on track.
And I mean, the Blue Jays, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right. I was just gonna say, I mean, he's joining the most fun offense there is in baseball right now, basically. And you would think that's gonna push him more, like if he wants to be good ever, I mean, he's been good in the past, but you know what I mean? He like really is gonna want to be good this year. I've said it worries me because his average keeps tanking, and yeah, I guess it could be the injury, but I'm just afraid he's kind of becoming like a Joey Gallo.
No, I mean, it could be. The one thing with the hip, I would say, is the Blue Jays had to have checked out his medicals pretty extensively if they're going to give up this kind of haul, which they did.
I'm sure.
So, the barrel percentage when he was, last 3 years, back in 2019, he had 36 home runs. 2020, he only batted .232 with 10. Last year, he bounced up to 27, but I think that hip injury was lingering. What I said. So in 2019, his barrel percentage was 10.9. 2021, 13.7. So his power, like I said, I think is still there. I think that it's something that he can still generate the kind of 40 home run power everyone was hoping he could. The plate discipline was still there. A chase rate 26.6%. The only thing is the Z contact dropped from like 83 to 75. So when I see all those things, the power is there, the plate discipline, the batting eye is there, and the only thing that's down is the contact. I'm just thinking like, that hip just kind of threw him off. It threw his mechanics off. It threw his timing off, and I could be wrong entirely. But when all those other skills are still intact, he didn't try to overcompensate by, chasing pitches or anything. That's where my hope is. So, and also Blue Jays, he's in a loaded lineup. They had to have checked his medicals. So I'm in. I think that there's good.
So real quick, because someone's asking this question actually in the chat, where do you think Chapman hits in that lineup? Roster Resource has him at 6 behind Gurriel. Do you think he more so will fit in 5 behind Teoscar, or you think that's probably accurate?
Well, the good thing about the Blue Jays is their lineup is entirely dependent upon who is hot and who is not, because they're all right-handed, except for Bishop, who could get platooned. So, yeah, the top 4 is set. It'll just depend on how the rest of everyone's going. But Springer may miss some time. It'll move around a lot, but I wouldn't draft him hoping for anything higher because, again, the top 4 is locked in.
Yeah, you're not touching them. Absolutely.
So it's 5 or 6 is like whatever.
Yeah.
No one behind going to be protecting him any more than Grichuk. It's
right.
all
right.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the final person we're going to talk about. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but Seiya Suzuki. He signed with the Cubs. So here's my question. I mean, it's tough to figure out how these guys are going to play coming overseas. I have a writer at SP Streamer, Drew Wheeler, who loves him. But again, I think most people are pretty confident that, yeah, he's going to give you some power, and that's kind of like what he's going to do for you. So my question here is, though, now they have a crowded outfield in Chicago. So who do you think this kind of hurts? Because I feel like roster resource is a little confused right now because I've seen them switch it several times. First, they kicked out Clint Frazier out of the DH. Now they kicked out Jason Hayward, which I would assume would be the right move, but he's got a good glove. So, plus they have Harold Ramirez now. I mean, if you were to guess, Matt, do you think it's just going to kind of be a cycle between those three guys? I mean, they have Nico Horner too, or do you think like maybe they just bench Hayward from now on? Finally,
I think that the player hurt the most will depend on the health of Clint Frazier. He's dealing with that. He's dealing with the, he has dealt with the dizziness, and we don't know how that. Overall, though, if everyone's healthy, it's got to be Harold Ramirez, because as a righty, he can platoon with like Rafael Ortega, who's a great bat as far as platooning goes. He needs to be platooned, but he's the strong side. Harold will be the short side. And if the DH is going to be used again in those days where you want a lefty in there, Hayward will probably get in there and Harold wouldn't. So as it stands right now, Harold probably gets the short end of the stick if everyone's healthy. Unfortunately, I really like Harold Ramirez too. Like I said, they are very loaded up. As far as predicting what Suzuki's going to do, I have no idea.
No one does.
It's possible. It's impossible to project, the statistics from Japan over here. All you have to do is look at some projections. The BAT and ATC only have them getting 287 plate appearances, so I'm assuming they just haven't updated those. The ones that have updated to 560, Zips DC and Fangraphs, their depth charts. Zips,
way off.
Zips has them both 560 plate appearances on the dot. One has batting 211 with 14 home runs and 6 stolen bases. That's Zips. And Fangraphs depth charts have them batting 282 with 20 home runs. What?
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
It was something in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Right.
This is not good fantasy advice. And this is telling people what I'm doing. When there's a player that has like question mark after question mark after question mark, I cross your name out.
Yeah.
I'll let other people worry about it. It's one guy. I'll let other people figure it out. I'm not going to win or lose my league based on this player. I have no idea when to draft him. I see, there's always someone who likes him more than I do. I forget he's there half the drafts, to be honest. So yeah, I don't know enough here. From even if I was a huge scouting person, you don't know how it's going to project over. So he's going late enough where you can certainly take a shot, but he's going still in the middle of a bunch of very decent hitters. So
I would figure hitting like 250, 20 home runs, a little bit of speed. That would be my guess. But who knows?
Because that's like the very middle of what you just saw.
Basically.
Oh, man. That is the midpoint of those two projections.
Lauren, do you happen to have any Suzuki shares, or do you?
I don't. I always, I sit there and I just don't do it because I think like what Matt was talking about a little bit. It's like there are other guys always going in that range where I would have less question marks. So, and I just haven't. Do you have any?
I have one, and that's just for Drew Wheeler, who's our writer, because he loves him so much. I did it for him.
Do you have any, Matt?
No, I don't. I like I said, I literally do cross him out. I'm not. I don't know what to make of him. I don't know what I'm getting from him. So I don't know the stats I'm getting, and everyone wants to lock in those plate appearances.
You just don't know.
I mean, he has a much better profile than the guy I'm about to talk about. But people were excited about Shogo Akiyama.
I was super excited about Shogo. I love Shogo.
Never plays.
I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, and the floor is as low as the ceiling is high. So yeah, I'll
Yeah, totally agree. All right, well that does it. Thanks for coming on, Matt. Can you just tell everyone where they could follow you, and if you got anything cool coming up in terms of articles or anything?
We're not going to talk about Ian Kennedy going to Arizona. What's this about? I got shortchanged. Everyone, you can follow me on Twitter at ATTWI77IMS. If you ever have any questions where I'm always talking about advanced analytics, if I ever throw out anything, I try to be redundant on my own podcast and explain things over and over. But if you have any questions, reach out to me. My DMs are always open. I love talking baseball. And check out my weekly column over at NBC Sports Edge on Tuesday by the numbers, where every week I try to teach you how to do your own piece of research, teach you how to fish so you can, eat for a lifetime sort of situation. And yeah, subscribe to the Turn 2 podcast, where I have my platform there to talk about whatever I feel like. I just had Ron Chandler on, and that was
nice. You got anyone coming up?
I do. I have Lauren Auerbach coming out.
Okay.
Next week I have Nick Pollock. I know I have
Nice.
Josie Pisapia coming up, Frank Stanfield. I have a bunch of people lined up.
Wow. Busy man
Mike
over there.
Curlin coming on to whine about lineups and spring training.
Mhm.
We have him on next week too. Should have never did it. I'm already regretting it. Yeah. So make sure you follow Matt on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at SB Streamer. You can follow Lauren on Twitter at LK Auerbach. As I just mentioned, next week we will be having Mike Curlin on the show. I think it's a Monday show, actually, which we never do.
Yeah.
So we will be live streaming that on Monday, I think 9 p.m. Eastern, and that means it'll be released on Tuesday. Please check out our website, spstreamer.com. Make sure you check out our membership on our website and our draft kit. Both of those you could see in the shop. If you are listening and enjoy the show, please rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And thank you for listening, and we will see you all soon.